Are you feeling unworthy of love? Stay tuned. This is Damon Cart from NLP Gym. How to love yourself. NLP Mind Hack. If you haven't already, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. Okay, I lied. I can't teach you how to love yourself. Why? Because that's just an idea. That is not true. You never stopped loving yourself. That's just an idea that you picked up from someone, and you can drop it just as easily as you picked it up. If there is such a thing as love, and I do believe that there is, you never stopped loving yourself. You love yourself even if you don't know it. Not loving yourself, or this idea of not loving yourself, just means that you don't feel whole. You feel somehow incomplete, or that something is missing. But of course you are a whole human being, and it's when you feel that wholeness that you feel loved. Oneness is the love that you feel with someone else. When you're in love with someone, or you feel love for someone, that could be your kids, that could be your parents, that oneness with them, that is love. And then some people even feel oneness with the world. And that's one of those more enlightened states. And that is when you actually feel that wholeness with the world, because you don't experience separation. The lack of love for yourself, or not feeling love for yourself, is basically you divided. It's the illusion of separation between parts within yourself that gives you this feeling of not being loved. NLP actually offers a lot of processes on dealing with this. And there are some simple solutions, and I'm going to give you one in this video. First of all, understand that you do love yourself. You cannot not love yourself. The feeling of not loving yourself must mean that you know what it's like to then love yourself, because to think that you don't love yourself, or to feel like you don't love yourself, you can't know that unless you compare that to having loved yourself, or the feeling of loving yourself. So how do you know you don't love yourself? What is that like? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel in your internal experience that lets you know that you don't love yourself? And then is there something externally that you interpret as you not loving yourself, as in, has someone told you, oh, you must not love yourself? If someone has told you that, and that is what you believe based on what someone else told you, what qualification do they have to make such a judgment about your own internal experience? I've heard this a lot. People come to me sometimes and they say that their life coach told them, or their therapist told them, that they don't love themselves. I think that's a pretty awful thing to say to someone, and the therapist or the coach probably said that with good intent. So I don't want to demonize the coach or the therapist for saying that, because they probably meant it well. But I think what happened is they introduced a very limited idea to that person, or to you. Or where this might originate from, and where it originates for a lot of people, is in childhood. And in childhood there was likely an adult, perhaps your parent, but not necessarily, and usually someone older, communicated to you that you were unworthy of love, or that love was conditional, or that you have to earn love in order to have love and to keep love. And they might not have articulated in those exact words. They could have done it in another way, such as you wanting something from them, or wanting to receive love from them, or wanting some attention from them, and they put a condition on their attention. And at the time, a lot of children actually, and some adults still do this, confuse attention and love. And at the time, as a child, you might have confused the attention and the love. And also, the person communicating this message was probably coming from a very limited place. Their limited communication coming from a very limited place was likely the origin of this idea that you don't love yourself. Get in touch with this feeling of not being loved. Where does it actually occur in your body? Once you know what that is, get a sense of it, and then trace it back to its origin. And the strange thing is that sometimes this can actually go back to a time when you didn't even know how to speak, or you didn't have the cognitive ability to articulate a concept like love. It's amazing sometimes how far this will go back, and Did it actually happen or not is completely irrelevant. This is part of your experience. This is what's happening inside of you, and this is how you're making sense of it. So go back to the origin of it and find out who communicated this to you. Where did this start? And once you have that, look at the person who's communicating this to you. And again, it doesn't have to even be in words. They could have communicated it to you through touch. So once you have this person in front of you, imagining this person in front of you, tell them, start to have a dialogue with them, and then tell them that you picked up this idea from them and that you don't want it anymore, and actually hand it back to them. Give yourself some sort of symbolic way in which you can give this idea back to them and tell them you don't want it anymore. You're done. It was never yours to begin with, and let it go. I've done this a number of times for a number of bad ideas that I've picked up from people when I was a kid. And one time I was having this dialogue with this imaginary person and telling them that there was a particular idea that I was burdened by and I didn't want it anymore, and here, I'm giving it back to you. The funny thing is that person didn't want it anymore either and didn't believe in that idea, so they didn't want it back, which was interesting. And what I did was at that point is I just dropped it on the ground like a sack of rotten potatoes and just said, okay, I don't care if you don't want it anymore, if you don't want it back, I'm not taking it anymore, I'm not going to be burdened by this anymore. And like I said, I just dropped it on the ground and then walked away in my imagination. But that unburdened me. I didn't feel like I don't feel like I carry this idea around anymore, which is an amazing thing. And it's amazing what the mind does symbolically when you drop things, when you drop false ideas like not loving yourself. Just let it go and drop it on the ground like a sack of rotten potatoes. In other words, the person doesn't have to take the idea back when you give it back to them. The main thing is to unburden yourself of this idea, let it go, drop it on the ground like a sack of rotten potatoes. You don't want this idea anymore. It was never yours to begin with. This idea that you don't love yourself is just not true. Drop it like any other bad idea and let it go. Check out my website, nlp-gym.com. Follow me on Facebook for real-time updates on upcoming workshops and free practice sessions that I hold right here in Santa Cruz, California. If you like this video, please click like right down here and leave me a comment or even a question. I will follow up with you. Let me know what's bothering you. Let me know what your biggest frustrations are, your sticking points, your blocks. I will respond to you. Stay tuned to the end of this video so you can see how you can get your hands on a free NLP online training. Take care.